and you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is Dr. Richard Allan Miller. Richard is something of a regular on my show these days, and it's always a pleasure to have him on. He's an author and researcher, and Dr. Richard Allan Miller reveals a depth of knowledge and experience in alternative agriculture, physics, and metaphysics. Miller began working in the secret world of Navy Intel, SEAL Corp, and the MRU in the late 60s, and now has amazing experiences and conclusions to share. Before many leading-edge concepts became trendy topics, Miller was and is in the international front lines of research, experimentation, and documentation. His website is www.richardallanmiller.com, and his other website, if you want to purchase his materials and books, is oak-publishing.com. And please welcome Richard to the show this evening. Hi, Richard. You there? Are you muted? He's always past my mommy. Richard? Hello? I was just talking to him a second ago, so I know he's there.
There. Sorry about that.
Do that all the time to me. How you doing?
I'm asleep at the wheel, obviously.
Aww.
I had my mic turned off, and now it's on. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Well, I didn't even think about that. I just started responding and thought you had me off the volume or something. I don't know.
That's okay. No.
Okay, I'm here. Yes.
Yes, and I'm happy to have you here, and everybody else is happy to have you here as well. So what's been going on in your orbit? Quantum weirdness or what?
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird when the synchronicity of different weird events are happening at you. You start to get paranoid, like you think somebody is playing dirty tricks on you. Mm-hmm. And you can't prove it. You know, it's like, okay, like last night, I came out of the theater. I went to the movies during daylight, and I watched Judge. It's an excellent movie, by the way. Mm. And when I came out, my truck lights were on, and the cab lights were on. I did not turn them on. The truck is locked up, and so the battery's dead. Mm. Now, how did that go? Did I have Alzheimer's? Am I having a mini stroke? Did I pull those light things out? Even when I turn or leave my lights on, I don't turn on the cab lights too. It's just irritation. You're never going to know what really happened. The truck was locked. It was locked just exactly the way I left it. How did that work? Did I do that? Gremlins. I don't know.
Gremlins.
I'm over some targets. Apparently, some of the things that I'm talking about are of an irritation to something. Who knows what? And I can only speculate. And the weirder I do that, the creepier it gets. Mm-hmm. You know, this new development on the Fullering neutron bomb development is, I've been working this. There's a woman named Judy Wood that, you know, has some exceptional evidences to suggest that 9/11 was, you know, a false flag. Now, 25% of Americans believe that it was a demolition of some kind, that it was not, those buildings did not fall from an aircraft. Now, if that's true, why are there not any war crimes like Nuremberg? The news reporting today in our reality, including alternative radio, is worse than the war with Nazi Germany. The discrimination and abrupt, you know, criticisms of just what's being reported and the fear-mongering is nuts.
Yeah.
And there will be, the good news is, at some point, the universe will have Nurembergs and accountability. Whether it's in our lifetime, you know, stay tuned on that, like the Dark Ages. Mm-hmm. This is the Dark Ages.
Oh, it certainly feels that way. I mean, it feels like we're having a planetary meltdown.
Well, and it's as if the war that we're currently experiencing is on many planes. Zen Gardner, that's a good guy, has written some very interesting things about the war being multidimensional. Mm-hmm. And that what we're doing is creating some kind of schism in other dimensions that's freaking out those elementals or angels. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, we know that the mind is reality. And so I had a friend that was talking about sitting in Whole Foods, and next to the table, this couple that were eating this natural foods and all of that, their entire conversation for over an hour is about cable TV and zombie eating movies. Brother. Now, where everybody eats each other. And that's the whole thing that they talked about for a full hour. Now, if we start doing that, we're going to have zombie drugs. Yep. It turns out there's some interesting things about Ebola. Ebola is not airborne. It is through bodily fluids. So how are all these people being affected? Page 2. It turns out that the symptoms for Ebola are exactly the same symptoms for radiation sickness.
Right.
Page 3. The sicknesses in Liberia, not Sierra Leone, but in Liberia, were all traced to formaldehyde in the water. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Ebola. Page 5. It just goes on and on. Every single layer of information is orchestrated as yellow journalism for controlling the masses. Yep. And when you vector back, follow the money, that's the story. And you want to see who owns NBC, that's where it starts to get creepier. Mm-hmm. For example, and here's something that most people don't realize. We are at war with transnational corporations. The state of Oregon, where I live, has an annual budget of $3.2 billion. And yet, Johnson & Johnson Wax, a smaller pharmaceutical house, not one of the bigger ones, smaller one, is $3.2 billion each quarter. Mm-hmm. And when you realize there are at least 70 or 80 transnational corporations that are larger than Johnson & Johnson Wax, where does that put the state of Oregon and Grants Pass, Oregon, and living here on Fifth Street? This is nuts.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. Well, why are the troops deployed to Africa? What do you think they're doing there? Obviously not to fight the Ebola virus.
Well, we'll never know. Mm-hmm. What we will know is that there is typhoid Marys, where they had to inoculate all the individuals that weren't willing to pull guns on Americans, and they sent them to, Sierra Leone, and then had to inoculate them. Who knows what that's in there? I would say never get an immunization shot for any reason. Mm-hmm. Tetanus, some of the other things that are, the realities of our working and living in a country life kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Really, the viruses are not as real as the immunizations. And the immunizations have already been proven to cause autism in our children. Mm-hmm. And with that said, with requirements of having to take these, all your drugstores, Walgreens and all the good feely places where you get your drugs, are giving out free immunization shots. Even my bank, the one I bank at, had a big blood mobile outside.
Oh, it's bad enough they're ripping you off, right?
Empires, yeah. They're taking blood for what reason?
Jeez.
And who knows what's going back into you when you're doing that. I wouldn't have anybody doing anything to me. And basically, Ebola, just for the record, is a super scurvy. That means it strips all the vitamin C out of your body. And if you are eating properly and have a proper nutrition, even if you were exposed, to bodily fluids, the likely is your body will stave it off. And if you should be just with proper nutrition. Mm-hmm. And so most of these countries, I don't think anybody realizes the biggest tragedy that is not being reported in the news every day is that 21,000 babies die every day. And nobody's reporting that.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about the sensationalism of a nurse that got into a flight that should have da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm guessing that did it in the wrong state because Texas, Texas has got its own grid. Watch what happens next. Trust me, it's not going to play well for anything. And so the pain and suffering and fear mongering is crazy. And of course, InfoWars coming out every day with the fear backwards. What I would like to do, by the way, Ebola, if you were to get infected, you could probably take 6 to 8 grams of emergency and for about a week and have no problem reducing and having your body eliminated. And if that didn't work, you could do it intravenously with a doctor. And that's documented. So what is really going on out there? Well, imagine, here's a scenario. Imagine your mall has a suspected Ebola person walk into the mall. What happens next? Well, the mall is closed down and quarantined. What's that do to the local economy? Mm-hmm. What happens when the local economy starts to really get into a panic is the right to declare martial law.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It goes downhill from there. You can watch to see what colored sticker they put outside your mailbox, probably. I don't know.
Nice. Mine's red.
Well, there it is.
I tease.
The red pill and the blue pill.
I don't care anymore. I swear to God. You know, it's interesting, but I do agree with you on the martial law thing. I think that's what they're gearing up for. I really do.
Well, that's FEMA. What is okay? Now, let's talk about real things. One real thing is Fukushima. Mm-hmm. Yeah, last week, the Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center lit up like a candle as some plutonium particulate fell in the state of Florida. The whole thing, Redcon 5 level alerts, it lit up like a candle. Kind of like in 2011 when we started getting weird dandelions growing in Michigan next to schoolyards. Mm-hmm. Most people don't realize that there is a gag order in Japan that will, if any whistleblower is immediately forfeit to go to jail. Mm-hmm. And so the reporting out of Japan right off the top is censored. And with that, the fact that all 4 nuclear power plants, it wasn't that they melted down, they were nuclear exploded. And a whole bunch of particulate went up into the stratosphere. It's hanging up there, like chemtrails hang up there. They're a little lower. And this radiation belt gets manipulated and pushed around the world. And what happened last week is a few particulates fell down in Florida. Mm-hmm. And then any aircraft that's coming from Asia now into LAX is immediately quarantined, taken out of sight of the public, and washed down thoroughly. I have no idea what DEQ thinks about all that particulate washing out into the Pacific Ocean, because that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so if you think Japan's weird, being in an aircraft in normal reality means you're getting approximately 9 X-rays. Most people didn't realize that when you're that high up in the stratosphere, the shielding from gamma rays and ionizing radiation particles is maximally up around 9 times. Mm-hmm. And while that's not harmful, it's absolutely devastating to small children. And worse, the fact now we have a new radiation cloud besides the Van Allen belt that astronauts have to go through in order to get up or down the universe. None of them are ever going to have children again. Hmm.
Wow.
And I'm the physicist here telling you exactly what's happening. The background radiation from Fukushima right now is up in some regions of the United States 10 times what it was before 2009.
Yeah, I believe that.
And here we have a problem with Japan now. There's a bunch of doctors over there that are calling for the complete evacuation of Tokyo. children, there are 28% of children being tested in Japan. Tokyo Prefect right now have some kind of thyroid abnormality. 28%.
Wow.
That means mostly probably those children, Japan's dead. I mean, I'm not, as a scientist, I wouldn't dream. I love Japan, and Japan with Shogun and the warlords and the samurai. That concept is going to go down in history like Greece and Atlantis as a mythology and myth. We are never going to see that kind of richness in culture where they ritualize their food in the eating of their food, and they ritualize their death when they make a mistake. That concept and value system is not foreign, but unusually unique and special, made Japan different. By the way, that is our resource in the world, is the diversity of our children. And so that's another bad one is, I mentioned Fukushima. Well, here we got education. They're dumbing down America. And actually the words that people use to describe Americans today are ignorant, ill-informed, and complacent. That even when you know the truth, you don't do anything about it.
Well, that's what they're doing. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's what the majority of people, the masses here in America, are doing. And unfortunately, we're getting completely invaded. Now, what I'm seeing right now is really a third world country manifestation. Our superpower, what we used to be as a superpower, is fading to black. I mean, do you see this or what?
Well, yeah, it's moving to Ecuador because we have just become Ecuador.
I mean, it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's going to happen in the next 3 months, just for a picture, is that when Saudi Arabia started selling oil with non-petrodollars, that was the beginning of the end. And before Christmas, I'm guessing anything from Asia is going to cost 4 times what it costs right now. In the next 3 months, that's what's going to happen next. You won't be able to get anything from China at the prices you used to pay.
And everything is actually manufactured in China these days. I mean, we're really screwed. If we don't change this course, I would say America's screwed.
So China right now is in a big move up in Canada to take over all their utilities. Yeah. And in fact, that's what Bundy Ranch was really all about. That one Chinese firm wanting the cattlemen to move out so they could put in those solar mirrors. Poor turtles got squashed either way, and there was almost a war going on there. And the weird part was, when I left the military and went into farming, for the next 35 years, I started working with companies like BLM. And I have never seen BLM have an armored tank carrier or those kinds of weapons. BLM is just the state-managed land people. What's this all about of selling our parks and national treasures to China as a bailout for back debts that we owe? That's what's happened. We're in the process of giving our country away to China. Grants Pass, Oregon, where I live, is 50% owned by China. And that's real estate. That's not talking about, Walgreens and, whatever, some of these other Walmart.
Well, to me, I mean, I understand that they're making these deals under the table and this and that, but the bottom line is they've been lying to the American people, which kind of nulls and voids all these contracts that they've created throughout. So what I suggest is that the people take the land back and say, screw you to China and screw you to everybody else who's trying to invade this property of this land that we fought for. I mean, that's my own impression. I don't believe in giving things away to people. I don't care. We didn't subscribe to this. We weren't informed about it. Therefore, we shouldn't be held accountable.
So that's Dennis Kucinich sent me a paper he just came out with on the real reason we're in Syria. And it's all about oil. And the United States, for the first time, is back into reserves. And because we have reserves of oil, our own sources, from fracking and other weird places, they want to export and sell to the world. And that's a thing that's going to have to go through Congress. And what's happening basically is transnational corporations, not the United States government. And that's why you're going to see the CIA, the NSA, and some of these other agencies that are at war but not with the American public. It's like a war going on between the the Illuminati and it's like a war going on between the government of the United States trying to somehow hold control over transnational corporations. And if you used oil as an example, we have oil to export, and we're not allowed to do that, and the petrodollar is crashing. When all is said and done, there is a war going on between these corporations and the sovereignties of countries. I watched a video called Stateism, and it's what a state is, like, the United States, what a state means. And really, the United States has no business making judgment on any other country. We are the worst, biggest bullies in world history. In Vietnam, we killed more people in the name of state. Mm-hmm. And I didn't vote for this guy. And if a military person told me to kill someone for the good of the state, I'm not necessarily blindly going to do it. Whether I'm a conscientious objector or I'm a Quaker or it's against my spiritual values, I don't know anybody in Syria. Why would I want to spend billions of dollars to bomb it into senseless things? The whole thing's about oil.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And that's the war, and that's the part we're not being told the truth of. BP and what they did down in the Gulf of Mexico is probably one of the most hideous crimes, comparable to possibly Auschwitz.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And nobody's talking about it like that.
No, it's been glazed over with mainstream media.
Well, they're talking about aliens, and they're talking about this and that. And the thing is, these are all blue hair distractions. Mm-hmm. Really, the war is going on inside each of us. And so the metaphor that I use, metaphysics, is that if I can save myself, I will save the world in doing it, one person at a time, because you and I are the same person at one level of the hologram. The what they call the collective unconscious, the part where the Beatles saying, "You are me and I am you and I am the walrus." There it is. We have one point. The war going on for Earth is to distract you. If there are good aliens or bad, they're most likely in that genome blood type. That's where they're hiding. And the war is actually inside yourself in terms of doing the right thing. And everybody knows what the right thing is. And while it might be different between you and me, that's because we're in fourth grade and that's God's will. The fence is green. No, it's red. That kind of place. That place is the distinction of how low and level our awarenesses are. That would mean we don't have free will because we don't have full disclosure.
Well, you have universal free will. What I will tell you, though, they tried to stop our ascension process in consciousness. There's no doubt about it. When I say these parties that be, obviously the ones who deploy psychotronic hardware covertly and destroy people's brain cells, when they scramble with the transmission. I'm telling you, I understand what they're doing. Yeah, but it's beyond microwaves, beyond that. It's artificial intelligence and erasing.
Yeah, they're doing that with cell phones.
Well, but that's the low order stuff. I'm talking about the high tech crap, and I'll tell you point blank, they've been screwing with people for a long time, conditioning them and training them into brainwave patterning and false matrices to a point where they have a hard time navigating to the higher levels of multidimensional consciousness, which is what you're talking about. So they're kind of trapped in their own demise, but it's not their fault. Now we're dealing with a system that's defective and literally has tried to program the masses throughout their birth. And so obviously that needs to change. That whole thing needs to be broken down and reconstructed. But how do you do it? I mean, the people don't want to move out of their bubbles, and we're already out of it. I mean, I'm a multidimensional being. I'm already beyond all this BS, but I'm here now on this timeline witnessing the craziness. I know you are too. Go ahead. I mean,
no, it's fun. Solaris, I was watching you rant and rave like me.
Isn't that great?
I got your button on.
No, but I mean, I have to address this because obviously I understand the technological stuff. I understand how they try to sweep everybody and shove them down, very down, very low.
Yeah. So. What you do is like network, where you open the window and you yell out to the world.
Yeah.
I'm mad as heck, and I'm not taking it anymore.
I'm certainly not taking it anymore, and I don't think
So
many
what do you do about geoengineering? So there's this senator in Arizona. She held open hearings because she said her constituency demanded her to have open hearings on geoengineering and what's really going on. And they had all these things, people come in and testify, affidavits, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, she said, this is all important, but there's nothing I can do about it. Now, that's a congresswoman admitting it. When I heard Congress reluctantly agree to Obama bombing Syria, what does reluctant mean? That's creepy. Mm-hmm. And what I would do is I would vote out anyone that's done more than 8 years. Just as a policy that nobody's allowed to serve any kind of service for longer than 8 years. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have with House of Cards and the games that are played in Congress where the evil rises to the top with their game playing.
Well, right.
And nothing's real. You know, Nick Begich is my very good friend, mm-hmm. and his younger brother, Mark, is junior senator out of Alaska. And I tell you, Mark almost didn't run again because it's a sham. It's not what you think it is. Right. And the pork barrel concepts of, oh, geez, they slip things in here and writers in there. I don't think you guys all realize what Clinton did to us when he gave a guarantee to China on loans with our national parks. And that's what's going to happen next. And watch what China does in the next 5 years here is take over our utilities, your gas and electric and your water. Watch and see. That's how it's going to play.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the sad thing is we had all the natural resources here. We didn't have to contract with other countries. I'm talking way back. We literally could have sustained ourselves here with free energy and other things. It ticks me off beyond words to know that these guys have been just riding this wave of corruption and everybody's along for the freaking ride. And obviously, you know, the way we make this change today was literally we have to get somebody to intercept and break the chain of command and fire all these people and kick them out. I've said it before, kick them out of D.C., fire Congress, fire the president, fire the staff, fire everybody and reset the whole freaking thing if we want to keep this country alive. That's my opinion. What do you think?
The country right now is most likely ultimately going to fragment into 9 provinces. Mm-hmm. And that's been written up by numbers. Kucinich calls himself the king of the Midwest. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Well, it means that there are groups of states that have issues against federal government. Out here in the West, where I live, it's marijuana. However, marijuana is now secretly approved even in Texas. Remember when that kid would go to jail for 20 years for having a single joint? Mm-hmm. Now it's legal.
Yeah, look at Colorado. Look, you know.
It's all over right now, and it's not about marijuana. It's about your right to make your own decision, and that's the part where in statism we have given our rights up to law, which is above our law and can be at the point of a pistol forcing you to do something you do not believe in doing. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, what's wrong with that kind of picture? And so what I'm doing now is assisting individuals and congressmen in setting up small rural communities. There is one guy I just met. I might join him up on Thompson Creek. He has ebarterbank.net. Okay. And imagine where that would go in terms of working with barter rather than money.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Ithaca dollars and that kind of thing has shown to be value. It is money isn't real. What's real is your labor. And really, money is like a balloon that you can blow up and pop. There is, once we went off the gold standard, the gold was gone out of Fort Knox. Where do we go with that? And the petrodollar is meaningless. And now everybody's saying how awful Putin is. I'll tell you what I do know about Putin. Whether he came from KGB, whether he has a little man syndrome, What he has done is given Russia back to Russia. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that's something that no president in Russian history has ever been known for. Putin has done more for his country in that regard. Whether or not we see if it's evil empire because he's in league with China and Iran, well, the guy that got beheaded by ISIS turned out to be a Mossad agent. It wasn't. The whole thing is false flag. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, we'll never really know the truth because our media is controlled by transnational corporations.
Well, yeah, you have to kind of break the arrow and walk away. The problem I'm having right now is I don't have a problem ignoring the maelstrom of lies. I have a problem that they're encroaching in our personal lives and our personal happiness and everything that we're doing from day to day. They're corrupting it right down to an invasion of people we don't even need here in the United States. So literally, we have a lot of problems right now that need to be resolved, and you can't break away from it. You cannot escape this black umbrella.
Well,
right now.
You can change the internal landscape of yourself. That will structure the water in your body, and that will change the projection of the hologram. Yep. And really, while you may not see your ability to change the world, Solaris, if you walk your dog, your daughter's watching you, your granddaughter's watching you. They're learning how to do it for themselves, and in a metaphor, they are your reincarnation. And so you have a fiduciary responsibility for, transferring value down in the line. And that's been what the problem has been with the United States, is the breakup of the American family. Mm-hmm. Even in Mexico, where everybody's, they got drug addicts and white slavery and barrios that are armed encampments with drug addiction and everything. The children are still happy. Why? Because their family is still intact. The mother rules the roost down there. Even if the grandmother's alive and the elder, it's the mother that makes the thing happen. And when the mother dies, the family fragments. And the kids today in our society have no role models.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And they don't have any. So the key here is to get off the couch and start walking your talk. And while you may not get there, you're going to, in some ways, show the children how to do it. You talked about our most important natural resource. Our most important natural resource is the diversity of our children. Mm-hmm. That's where the United States was always rich, and now we're not.
Right. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, but there's a small select group that are still rich at the expense of everybody else. If anybody needs to go to Reeducation Centers, now I'd like to express this data to the people in Congress and have them get reprogrammed and reeducated to understand what it's like and how to function as a multidimensional being. But it's kind of like too little, too late, because you can't train these dinosaurs. It's just you've spent your life being a mystical being and an educated being on so many different levels of physics and beyond. And I have too. I've spent my life working on myself, and a lot of other people have, listeners, but a lot of people don't. They're slugs.
Yeah, they would rather sit at a table and talk about zombies.
Right.
Movies.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, they have no focus. They have no direction.
Well, but the problem is, here's the deal: when they talk about zombie movies, guess what happens next?
They're a zombie.
Zombies movies happen. That's the way it works. We are literally creating our own reality, and so if there's a fear element in there, go figure. And so that's that metaphor. The glass is either half full or half empty. And if you can always try to move toward the more positive spin, that is how you restructure water. And that's the nature of health. Right. Actually, being honest is healthy. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. So on a global scale, looking at America right now, do you think it's safe for Americans to really stay here in America, or do you think they should try and go to a sanctuary or find a safe zone?
My stock response? Yes. All of the above. Ecuador, that's the ticket. Small rural communities where, during a snowstorm in the country, I always noticed that with shared hardship came a warmth. Mm-hmm. And when you were in a snowstorm and the power's out and everybody's got their candles out, there's something magical that happens then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the community that I mean, that place there. And everybody should focus now on what their joy is. Their joy is like your radio and being a little coven or something. I don't know.
This isn't my joy. I don't have any joy. My dog's
I'll
my joy.
tickle you until I get it out of you. No.
I've become an old crusty dinosaur.
Hey, there's ways. Joy. And really, meditation was to take you to bliss. Bliss is a lesser form of joy. Joy is the Quaker concept of union with self. And when you're doing your purpose, when your true will, that's the Crowley thing, you're into the groove, the flow, where everything comes to you. At the end of the day, your true will is what you ended up doing. And that's a chapter in my newest book, The Non-Local Mind, where it's called the Stanford Argument. And it's the difference between intent and intentionality. And when Maxwell Smart said to Agent 99, missed it by that much. One doesn't try, one does.
Yep, you bet.
That's the issue of will and the purpose of it. And if you want magic, there it is. Mm-hmm. And once you do that, how did Crowley put it? None will say nay. That means you're in cooperation with the universe. That's that echo thing you were talking about earlier, being in balance with nature and yourself. Yeah.
Right. Well, the universe does. It accommodates your picture of reality. It's giving to you according to your beliefs. But what amazes me now is that we've got a lot of these cabals and things that have orchestrated this event, but I don't believe they're magical in any form or design, and I don't believe they're powerful. I believe they're good at manipulation, and I believe they're taking advantage of good people.
Well, we're the ones that do it to ourselves, like voodoo. Once you believe in something, it becomes true. That's how voodoo works. Mm-hmm. Now, there are higher forms of magic where you go into sorcery and then tantric yoga or syntactic modes of consciousness where you're directing your true will rather than following by the nose like a shaman. Right. A shaman is a psychically unstable individual that receives a call to religious life. And as a result, that person usually goes through a period of solitude or retreat where they then emerge with the power, real or assumed, of passing at will into states of mental dissociation. That means I can place my consciousness inside the eyes of an eagle and see what the eagle sees. Mm-hmm. Now that's called prototaxic modes of consciousness. You have no memory of how you do that or not. You just do. Mm-hmm. Parataxic modes are when you start with dreams, archetypes, and mythology, and start seeing the mythical relationships to things as a metaphor. Mm-hmm. That's a dream state. And syntactic modes of consciousness is when you have your higher siddhas, where you have real powers in biofeedback, where I can control my heart rate with my mind.
Right. Yeah.
That place is what I started with in my journeys training Navy SEALs. And really, I wanted to take individuals, you, and, enhance you using toys.
Oh, I've already had that. Thanks.
I've got this new vibrator I'd like to show you. No, new states of ecstasy. There you go. Okay, cool. There are actually in my Power Tools book in Chapter 8, I laid down that ontology of mystical states as a roadmap. In my non-local mind book, I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to the next octave in terms of 5-space and how you change the movie. Actually, your brain, it can be seen as a hologram, okay? It is a 4-dimensional hologram of 5-space. That means at any given moment, it has 4 dimensions of action going on with liquid crystal phases and amorphous semiconductors, which means that if you can train yourself to go to specific places in the brain, like the Wernicke correction, for example, you can dismiss immediately some of the command systems that you had previously enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Now, that's what I'm going to talk about is the next level of deprogramming yourself with the blue pill.
Excellent.
Actually, it's the red pill.
Hey,
Whoops, I forget what color it was. We'll just eat them both.
Yeah, there you go. Which book is
Yeah. Huh?
Is this a book that's live now? Is it ready to go now?
What? The non-local mind, I'm writing it. About 2 months ago, my offices were physically hacked. That means while I was gone, someone came in and wiped my hard drives.
Jeez.
It happened.
You didn't have an extra hard
I
drive?
lost all 10 books ready for press, including the non-local mind. What happened was I have recovered 9 of them from other friends and other accidents that I had made copies or whatever. And the 10th, the non-local mind, was lost, but I had only started writing it. And so now I'm writing. It'll probably be ready March, probably. March. It all comes down to money. The book's done, essentially. I've written it in my mind. I haven't done it hardbound, but that's, I knock these books out. When I write like this, it takes me a little while, and I write it in my mind. And I've got it now. Like, one chapter is the Stanford argument. Another chapter is the Wernicke correction. Did you know that there is a place in the brain when we hypnotize you, anybody, trans-cultural, that means Japanese, Korean, whatever, Eskimos, they all of us have the same memory of having worked on Mars for the U.S. government. Now, how does that work? It is a collective unconscious thing that has something to do with the numinous or collective unconscious. And we are outside of space and time. Our gut is our intuition. That was one of the first books that I wrote in that series, where, ESP comes out of being intuitive, the relationship you have to feelings. That's the second hologram. There's actually 8 of them going up. Physical plane, emotional. Emotional plane is IQ with more detail, and that's why we call it EQ. When you have a feeling about something, that's rich quality of how your higher self talks to you through time and space. Mm-hmm. There it is. You know the keys, and everybody knows what I'm saying. It's just, and everybody has a different way of doing it, lots of different ways to Mendeley, but it's all in the journey of it. Right. One step at a time. Everybody's afraid to start the journey.
Well, they're also being distracted. They're getting busy time. Too much busy time.
There you go.
That's the biggest problem. I think you have to find time for yourself and start working on yourself on a spiritual level. And then everything starts to fall into play. I mean, you and I know this, and I'm sure the listeners do too. But a lot of people just don't get it, and they're literally derailed. So, but this is interesting information.
Everybody gets it at some level. Mm-hmm. And so, even if you're not quite right, ready, whatever, you got it.
Well, you get it through osmosis and frequency, I'm sure. And also there are like dream pool collectives, like what you were kind of describing there, where everybody kind of syncs up. Excuse me, but I still think they're doing some manipulation behind the scenes to a point where
they're... it's a distraction so that you lose sight of the ball.
Absolutely.
What's important to you, Solaris? Your children and family?
Well, I don't have any.
If you were to sit down and do that list, ABC, and then challenged it on, is this more important or is that more important? One of those kind of games. You will find that your mate has exactly the same values, and that when discord occurs, breakups or arguments, it's because the values take a different level of order. Mm-hmm. And that's all conflict is. It's not that person is bad. It's about a war going on inside you. That's the way you need to approach that. The problem isn't with that other person. It's that other person no longer reflects the inner part of yourself.
Right, yeah.
The 2 ways to God in the tree of life are the hermit and the lovers. You either do it androgynous or you do it with a partner. It is a metaphor again. Mm-hmm. And so the way you do that, you have to have that integration between the anima and the animus. And it's a relationship with self.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Well, it
Did
seems
I
to.
do it too wrong?
No, yeah,
Gotta
that's.
throw some metaphysics in there.
Oh, I love it.
So,
No, it's a good mix. But yeah, it's about frequency too, because you have it in a relationship, for example, you would have two different people operating and functioning on a different frequency, and sometimes they outgrow the relationship. The person that's more enlightened will outgrow the vibration and the frequency of that relationship too. And I've seen that happen where they break away to a higher level as the other person is kind of left behind, and not in a negative fashion, but that's just what happens by universal
well,
flow
for
sometimes.
someone as ethereal as me, I sometimes need a flat iron skillet where I'm brought back down to earth and, hey, cowboy, how would you like to get something you never got before? And I'd say back to her, what do you got, honey? Leprosy?
Be careful with that one. I guess we have that now in the United States, by the way.
I know.
I heard about
I
an
think
article.
that
Yeah.
is, what is that called? Drippy dick. I was in Vietnam. I saw it all.
Gosh, it's really disgusting what's happening here. It's like the four horsemen are riding. Plague, famine, war, and death.
Yeah.
That's another metaphor.
In all cultures, we've had apocalypse. From Nostradamus, Enoch, whatever, your revelations. It's always been a part of our collective unconscious. The thing, like ego, however, it needs to put in context with other things. Ego, you don't want to get rid of ego when you're meditating. In fact, what you want to do is put it down there in the corner where it belongs. It's an extremely important survival tool. And so you don't want to get rid of it. What you want to do is put it in context with other things in value of what is important to you. Spirituality is not what you do, but how you do it. Trying to go into spirit means that you're closer to your true self.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're that true self, like a wolf. If a wolf is in true self, eating a little Bambi is not wrong. That's what wolves do. They're not in conflict. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And so there's going to be conflict, but it's within ourselves. And that's where the war is actually going on for Earth right now. Mm-hmm. And I believe we have been invaded. And I believe they're battling on an interdimensional level. And I believe that there are good aliens and bad aliens and ugly aliens, and that there are rules of engagement where the bad aliens can only win by distracting you, and you have to make your own mistake.
That's interesting.
Trick you into hurting yourself.
Let me ask you something real quick here. Do you think they were engineered by us? When you're saying we're being invaded or we've been invaded, is that something that's been engineered with our underground?
I don't know. The movie Prometheus, mm-hmm. I can't wait, and the engineers, I can't wait for the woman in that movie to take the mothership back to the home planet. I read that comic already. Wait till you see Prometheus 2.
I think we're all ready to go back home, and home isn't here.
It's going to be a bumpy ride. And how did they put it in the movies? Oh, yeah, there will be blood.
Mm-hmm. Certainly is now. That's for darn sure. Yeah, I think we could have had an easier transition, though. I really do. I think it didn't have to go this way. Is my impression.
It has to go this way because it is going this way.
Yeah, but it never had to. I mean, we could have reset it differently.
At the end of the day, what you actually do or did is what you do. At the end of the day, you can do it kicking and screaming and fighting, or you can do it where you're like Buddha and a mountain comes to you, mm-hmm. the flow. The bottom line is your true will is what you ended up doing at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of
sense. And so you are accountable for your actions in that regard. And one of the things I always like to end that part with is the only thing you get to take with you is your education. Teach your children well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you take your spirit and your soul with you, for sure.
Well, but it's your education. That's one of the things you get to keep.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Well, then go for it. That means to become more educated. Ask your own questions.
Totally. No, I agree with that one. And I think a lot of people need to do that. Once again, you're dealing with information that's been based on false realities and false matrices and lies. And of course, they need to define the truth again, which is very difficult to do these days. But, you get the truth through the universal compass and the universal archives, like you understand. I know you understand that.
By the way, I'm looking at your picture, and you're just a beautiful woman. Are you you have some Creole?
Creole? I have a lot of Scottish in me.
What?
I have Scottish in me. I've Irish. I have a lot of Celts, and I found out we're Nordic and also some other stuff. Yeah.
Looking at pictures, I can't tell. Have you noticed
What's
how
that?
facial things are about more depth of who you are.
Well, I'm an old soul.
Everybody's face looks different. There isn't, but I mean, there might be a doppelganger out there.
I have a
But
doppelganger now.
me, my hat and on my weird laugh.
Oh, your hat's great.
Well, no, that's the uniqueness that is our national treasures, the diversity of that.
Yeah, totally.